I was like, why isn't he responding to me? Oh, I was saying they are amazing. I said, Evil and Naito were charter members of the group. So, I mean, and they've all gone on to do such great things with Evil even holding the IWGP World Heavyweight and Intercontinental Champion all at one time.
Yes.
So, great stuff. Sorry for the little malfunction there, folks.
I was wondering what was going on.
I like to mute it when you're talking so you don't hear all of my crap, and then I clicked something, but it must not have been the unmute button. Whoops! Well, after that guffaw, I guess I'll move on. Act like nothing happened. Number 4 on our list. Varsity Club, Paystee. This was a group in the NWA from 1987 to 1990. They've held championships such as the NWA World Television title. Mike Rotunda won that twice. He also won the NWA Florida Heavyweight Championship. Rick Steiner is in the group, who was an NWA Florida Heavyweight Champion. You got Kevin Sullivan and Steve Williams, Dr. Death. They were NWA United States Tag Champions. And Mike Rotunda and Steve Williams, NWA World Tag Team Champions one time, and All Japan World's Strongest Tag Team Champions one time. So what is the Varsity Club? Well, the Varsity Club actually formed in NWA by Kevin Sullivan when he recruited Rick Steiner, who was a collegiate wrestler from the University of Michigan, and Syracuse University wrestler Mike Rotunda, who some of you might know as Bray Wyatt's father, in 1988. The group would wear the Letterman jackets of their respective colleges and brag about their superiority to other wrestlers on the roster because of their amateur wrestling background. Think 1980s Kurt Angle sort of thing. In Rotunda and Steiner's case, their claims were legitimate as they were both multi-time wrestling champions in college. Of course, Kevin Sullivan, it was a work. He never wrestled in college, but, he was a mouth. Sullivan did win the TV title, though, with the help of his cohorts at Starrcade 88. Then after leaving the group, Rick Steiner received a match with who was now TV champ Mike Rotunda for the title. And despite Kevin Sullivan being locked in a cage at ringside, Sullivan had an ace up his sleeve, and that ace was former opponent Dr. Death Steve Williams, who was a legit University of Oklahoma alumni who had just joined the Varsity Club. And in 89, the group added University of Georgia alumnus Dan Spivey to the group. And basically, this kind of came together at a time when the Four Horsemen had disbanded, and NWA was kind of trying to fill that void. They wanted another major heel wrestling group, and it did good. I just don't think they ever really gave it the chance that it deserved.
Well, it's impossible to fill the shoes of the Four Horsemen.
That is true. I mean, it's never gonna happen. This is a great group, and anybody who knows Fat Mack knows that I love just some shoot wrestling, chain down home amateur wrestling, so I always loved these guys, and this was when I was right into NWA. I was really getting into it. So, I really, really dug this faction. It's always stuck with me, and I always think it's weird that people don't know about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess maybe the futures of their careers kind of overshadowed what came from here. But I mean, I think that's the case in a lot of these. That's why they are underrated. They were better off without the faction.
Yeah, that is true. This was before Scott Steiner was around, so there was no Steiner brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Death Steve Williams, this was probably at the height of his career, to be honest. But Mike Rotunda would go on to good, at least financial success in WWF with the IRS gimmick. Kevin Sullivan went on to be head booker in WCW. Dan Spivey, part of the Twin Towers. So, with old broken leg, Sid Vicious, there you go.
Old broken leg.
That's all I could think of. And they even at a point had Leia Meow as their valet, so you got a good-looking young lady in there, too. That always works in a faction.
Yes. So coming in at number 3, I'm bringing to the table kind of a doubleheader, if you will. The Revolution. as they were known in WCW, or the Radicals, as they were known in the WWF. In the face of old politicians and out-of-touch ways, the youth will rise. It's a tale as old as time, and on July 29th, 1999 edition of WCW Thunder, it was time for a revolution. Feeling slighted by booking despite being fan favorites, Shane Douglas recruited Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn to form a new resistance with storied lineage going back to Extreme Championship Wrestling. By October, Vince Russo became head writer and changed the gimmick of the group to be more anti-American or anti-government. In January 2000, Malenko, Saturn, and Benoit, along with Eddie Guerrero, left WCW and went on to be known as the Radicals in WWF, and debuted by interfering in a match between Al Snow and Steve Blackman versus the New Age Outlaws, dismantling Road Dogg and Billy Gunn in and outside of the ring. Unfortunately, by the end of 2020, the group sort of drifted apart as each took more focus on singles careers. But how could you not honor the brotherhood that brought us such legendary talent as these men? I mean, yeah, Chris Benoit, he's controversial. But we look at that in two halves. You look at the body of work the man did in his lifetime, and then you look at his incredibly shitty personal life.
And it's ironic that you have this right after Varsity Club, because do you know why? Do you know why they left WCW to go to WWF? Besides money, obviously, we know that.
Why?
Well, as I had mentioned, Kevin Sullivan became head booker of WCW, and at this time, Kevin Sullivan becoming head booker of WCW, these guys were getting pushes. They were pushing the younger talent. For those who may or may not know, Woman was Kevin Sullivan's wife, Nancy Sullivan, and they did a storyline where Chris Benoit stole Nancy Sullivan from Kevin Sullivan, and then in real life, she left Kevin Sullivan and married Chris Benoit. Obviously the worst mistake of her life, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
So at the time, the feeling was, with Kevin Sullivan being head booker, he was going to... Chris Benoit was fucked. He was never going to get anywhere. Yeah. Now, with that being said, the day before they actually left to WWF, to show that there was no hard feelings, Kevin Sullivan had Chris Benoit win the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. So he actually left the day after he won the title, never lost the title, started WCW when he was still technically WCW, or started WWF when he was still technically WCW champion. And legend goes, I believe it was Mike Graham from the legendary Graham family down south, who was a booker at the time, had one of the biggest reasons this came about, why they were allowed to just leave out of their contracts. Bischoff just let them leave. He said, if you want to go, go. Because Mike Graham said to Chris Benoit, if you had done to me what you did to Kevin Sullivan and his wife, I would put your head on a pike. And in a company business owned by Turner, which was a major company, and they were in the middle of merging with Time Warner and AOL, you can't really speak to your employees like that. So instead of getting involved in a lawsuit, Eric Bischoff said, anybody who wants to go could just go. You have my blessing. And he let him go.
Yeah.
So, kind of a fun little backstory.
Yes. I love it. And then their championships and accolades, of course, are split between WCW and WWF. And now I know why Benoit's World Heavyweight Championship is not recognized by WCW, but is recognized by WWE.
Right.
Not only that, but Chris Benoit was also a two-time WCW United States Heavyweight Champion and the WCW World Television Champion. And in WWF, Perry Saturn was the WWF Hardcore Champion twice. Dean Malenko, the WWF Light Heavyweight Champion twice.
Right up
Eddie
there with
Guerrero
Gilbert.
And Perry... Huh?
Is it right up there with Gilbert?
Yep. Better than Gilbert. Gilbert only had it the one time, I think.
That is true.
Eddie Guerrero held the WWF European Championship twice. Perry Saturn held it once. Chris Benoit held the WWF Intercontinental Championship twice, and Eddie Guerrero himself held it once, at least during the lifetime of this faction.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, such amazing talent. I mean, just so amazing.
Yes.
You think of, I guess, Shane Douglas and Dean Malenko are probably the two on there that probably didn't ever make it big in either any of the major companies. But Shane Douglas was huge in ECW, and Dean Malenko, I mean, he was part of WWE for decades, at least behind the scenes.
Yeah. I used to love Dean Malenko. I don't think he gets enough credit.
He doesn't.
Chris Jericho would agree with me.
Yeah, well, he doesn't, and I just think, the light. You said it right there with Gilbert being a light heavyweight champion. WWF at the time was never going to do anything with a light heavyweight guy, a cruiserweight guy. They're not doing it to this day either, really much. So.
And Perry Saturn might not have been much throughout his career, but he had one hell of a body. He was a Finn Balor body type.
Oh, and he was probably the best on the mic out of all of them.
Yeah.
Maybe Shane Douglas. And, what he did in ECW, obviously this was before even his WCW tenure, but with the Eliminators, him and Cronus, oh my God, that's one of my favorite, that's an underrated tag team for a list, is the Eliminators, Perry Saturn and Cronus.
There you go.
God, they were just amazing. So, yeah, very good stuff. I like it. Up next, we're at our number 2 spot, Paystee. We're getting close to the end. And I got one of my favorites of all time, which really flies under the radar, and I think mostly because it is a Ring of Honor faction. Age of the Fall, Paystee. Now, this has all sorts of members that you're going to know the name of that you didn't know were going to be big back then. Brody Lee, who ended up being Luke Harper in WWE and is Brody Lee in AEW now. Delirious, who was working as a trainer in WWE. Jimmy Jacobs, who's done everything and was a head writer in WWE. Joey Matthews, as a interviewer from WWE. Mischief, if you know anything about Shimmer Wrestling or women's wrestling, she's one of the best ever, especially back in the day. Necro Butcher, hello. Tyler Black, you might know him as Seth Rollins. Zach Gowen, the one-legged bastard.
Love that guy.
Leva Bates, Blue Pants.
Yes.
And Mr. Milo Beasley, who nobody knows.
It's a really bad name.
Yeah, Milo Beasley. Mr. Milo Beasley. You gotta love it. So here's the deal, Paystee, folks listening at home. For months leading up to Ring of Honor's 2007 return to Chicago, which was the upcoming Man Up pay-per-view, there were these cryptic messages all over the social media. Now remember, this was around 2007, so it wasn't like it was now. They had their blogs and their website, and these messages kept coming on as Project 161. Now this upcoming Man Up pay-per-view in Chicago would be the 161st Ring of Honor show. Coincidence? We're going to find out it wasn't. At the show, Jimmy Jacobs, the returning Necro Butcher, and a debuting Tyler Black violently attacked the Briscoe brothers after a brutal ladder match they had already had with Kevin Steen and El Generico. You probably know them folks. Jay Briscoe was hung upside down from the rigging that's used to, hoist the titles up. And as the bloody Briscoe's blood dripped down onto Jimmy Jacobs' white clothes and into his mouth, Jacobs, the zombie princess, announced the beginning of the Age of the Fall. Now, Zach Gowen, Delirious, and Joey Matthews would join next as the stable dominated and was the primary focus of most of the shows and pay-per-views at this time. At Vendetta 2 show, again in Chicago, Mischief interfered on behalf of Tyler Black, blinding Austin Aries with her green mist, and was officially made a member of the stable also. Then, when we go to Ring of Homicide 2, Jimmy Jacobs defeated Austin Aries in an anything goes match after Delirious and the debuting Brody Lee came